ruled the day.
Indeed, Kingsley, Nigeria is not lost in this reality, but on her part, the war against coronavirus is tilting in her favor, with at least 9 patients discharged in Lagos and Rivers State, as well as the Federal Capital Territory as of Tuesday.
Well, so far, 44 COVID-19 patients have been discharged in Nigeria, with some 6 fatalities. Lagos State, of course, has the highest number of persons infected with the disease.
However, as at 8th April 2020, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control in their COVID-19 update announced 22 new confirmed cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number to 276 cases from 17 states.
Well, a breakdown of the cases by states shows that Lagos now has 145 cases. FCT follows with 54 cases, and Osun comes with 20 cases, while Oyo has 11.
It doesn't end there. Others are Akwa Ibom and Kaduna State with 5 cases each. Ogun State has 4 cases. Edo has 12. Bauchi 8. While River State, Enugu, Kwara and Ekiti State all have 2 cases each. Meanwhile, Delta, Benue, Katsina and Ondo State have all recorded 1 case each as well. Quite alarming there.
Absolutely. Well, significantly, the Nigerian government has taken some very important steps towards containing the spread of the virus. And these steps include a lockdown of the Federal Capital Territory, Ogun and Lagos states, and a number of other states have also closed their entry and exit points.
But report from some states leaves one with a lot to ponder on. For instance, the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital Idi Araba and the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital have put no fewer than 40 health workers in isolation following contact with people infected with COVID-19.
Well, Katsina State is also not left out, as it has started contact tracing after a medical practitioner died of the coronavirus. And just over a week ago, Osun State recorded a sharp increase in the number of persons, who have been infected with the disease. And this development over the past week has certainly caused a number of questions to be asked with respect to what is happening.
And Kwara State is not spared either, as the state government just yesterday ordered a total lockdown of Offa following confirmation of 2 coronavirus cases in the town.
Well, a number of states, if they're certainly not all the states of the Federation, are stepping up in terms of their containment efforts. And we have, of course, isolation, stoppage of work, as it were, and closure of markets, as well as the provision of isolation facilities, disinfection of public places, plus the installation of laboratories.
Well, the Presidential Task Force headed by Boss Mustafa is following due diligence to assist President Buhari win the war against COVID-19 completely and totally.
Well, that's true, Jumai. The federal government has said that it will ensure the mass production of ventilators and disinfectant spraying devices to be that has already been designed by NASENE, which is the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. So all of these are part of the efforts aimed at reining in COVID-19, even though we see the numbers climbing now at 276. But what exactly are the states doing? We have taken a number of states already in the course of our focus on what is happening throughout the Federation. It's on that note, we'd like to welcome you to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Juma Yusuf. We also have our complimentary segments, newspaper review, business, and all that. But now we'll take the morning news with Musbao and Wahab. Good morning, Musbao.
So very good morning, Jumai and Kislin. Welcome to the news. Now let me tell you the news. Latest statistics from the Center for Disease Control, NCDC, show that there are 22 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 276. Of the 22 new cases, 15 are in Lagos, 4 in the FCT, 2 in Bauchi, and 1 in Edo State. The NCDC report that 44 patients have been discharged and 6 deaths have been recorded so far in the country. However, Nigeria is now having fewer cases of COVID-19 from returning travelers, but is beginning to experience community transmission of the disease in the country. This is one of the highlights of a daily briefing by the Presidential Task Force in Abuja.
Not to make pronouncements or take decisions that would undermine public safety in this regard.
We've trained a total of 270 healthcare workers in each state on case management. These trainings have built capacity among our healthcare workers, not only for this outbreak, which is absolutely critically needed, but also for the future.
No member of the committee receives a penny as sitting allowance. Everybody sacrifices his time, his energy, and even sometimes his resources.
Medical protective items worth over $1.5 million have been delivered to Nigeria by the China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation, CCECC, to fight the spread of coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria. Representatives of both Nigeria and China were on ground at the airports to receive the consignments.
In quarantine for 14 days. They knew that before they came, and they have undergone tests before they left their country. Nevertheless, they will be in quarantine for 14 days. Nigeria NCDC has gone to see where they are supposed to be in quarantine and will continue to pay. They are free to pay visits there throughout the 14 days. So that one is taken care of.
The value of the equipment, medical supplies, is around $1.5 million, and including the other costs, like the chartered air flight, it's all around $2 million.
FCT Minister Mohammed Musa Bello has disclosed that over 150-bed hospital has been set up with protective kits at the Do Isolation Center as part of efforts to contain this dreaded COVID-19. The minister, while inspecting the facilities at the center, revealed that the project was executed through partnership.
Our desire is that, in spite of all the arrangements made, no patient should even arise. We have to really appreciate and follow all the instructions given by our medical personnel regarding social distancing, regarding personal hygiene, regarding constant washing and washing of hands using soap.
7 persons have been certified coronavirus-free after isolation and treatment at the University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Gwagwalada. This is the first round of COVID-19 patients discharged in the Federal Capital Territory.
We have discharged 7 COVID-19 patients that were admitted at University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Gwagwalada. Amongst them, 3 female, 4 males, and the rest are doing very, very well. We hope to discharge more in the coming few days.
The coronavirus pandemic has not only forced the countries of the world to reshuffle their healthcare priorities, it has also compelled economic team of nations to go back to the drawing board. Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, and other key officials of the presidential economic team met the leadership of the National Assembly on the plans for adjusting the 2020 financial legislations and COVID-19 interventions.
So must ensure there is equity, that there is fairness in the distribution or in the interventions. Every part of this country should have something to ameliorate the situation. And that's the issue of electricity. I'm looking forward to a package, a robust package, that will include succor to the Nigerian people on the issue of electricity.
So as we design the various programs which will include healthcare, upgrade of healthcare facilities, support to state, public works, and other interventions that we're taking your input from at this time.
And just so you know, 67 Nigerians arrived in Nigeria Wednesday through the semi-border post. A statement by the Nigeria Immigration Service Public Relations Officer, Sunday James, indicates that contrary to an early report, the returnees were received by Nigeria Immigration Service operatives who have handed them over to officials of the Lagos State government after thorough profiling. Of the 67, 58 are from Osun State, 4 from Lagos, 2 from Oyo, and 1 each from Ondo and Edo, as well as Ogun State. Part of the Treasury House, housing the office of the Accountant General of the Federation this Wednesday, was gutted by fire.
An officer came to the office. He said he put on the air conditioner and there was a spark and he noticed smoke, so he immediately put it off, but it was still smoldering, so he had to rush out to get some help. And I'm glad to report to you that our data center, where all our records are kept, they are fully intact. There is no destruction, so we haven't lost any record.
Going to be an investigation to be instituted, and we should allow investigation to say it as it is.
That concludes the news highlight for now. Good morning, Nigeria. On COVID-19, situation reports in states will continue with Kingsley and Jumai after this break. I'm Musbal and Wahab. Good morning.
Thanks for rejoining us. Economic analyst commends management of COVID-19 and joins government to take advantage. Let's join Kule Adeye for details.
From Nigeria's index case to over 200 patients, more than 40 have been discharged with very few fatalities recorded in over a month. A development economist, Dr. Emeka Okengo, described the feat recorded by the Nigerian government as exceptional and urged the federal government to take proper advantage of the situation. He emphasized that measures taken by government to sustain the economy are far-reaching.
Now the question will be, can we use this advantage to be able to create jobs for our people? And the very obvious answer is a very loud yes. We are now, really. Okay, from the amount of recoveries that are going on, I'm even surprised that Nigeria hasn't started a medical tourism. I'm surprised that we're not sending our doctors, to these places, because we have proven that we can do this. And it's kudos, to Nigerian government and NCDC and of course the Ministry of Health. They have my prayers and they have my support.
And the equities market on Wednesday, April 8, 2020, closed on a positive note as Nigeria's stock exchange or share index appreciated by 0.71% to close at 21,073.26 points, as against 1.24% appreciation recorded previously. Its year-to-date returns currently stands as minus 21.49%. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeye.
Many thanks, Kunle, for the business package. Next is newspaper review.
To begin the newspaper segment, we begin with the Punch newspaper. Just above the masthead, Discos offer customers 2 months free electricity. That's some good news for Nigerians there. You find that story on page 21. Federal government slashes budget, sends to National Assembly for review. You find that story on page 25. Fix refineries before petrol subsidy removal. That's coming from Pengasan and Nupeng. You find that story on page 24. 320 million Abacha loot. Nigeria opposes U.S. senators' move against return. You find that story on page 13. And just below the masthead of the Punch newspaper, 91 begin quarantine as more returnees take land borders. With rider, immigration hands over 67 returnees to Lagos State government, 24 arrived today. Private hospitals to get treatment license. 22 new cases recorded, total hits 278. And the picture story you're seeing there, medical and Chinese doctors and nurses on arrival aboard Air Peace flight in Abuja on Wednesday yesterday. You can see them there, and the drugs they brought to Nigeria, face masks and all that, but they will be quarantined for 2 weeks. Tension in Benue community as police recover corpse. That's on page 10. We have not postponed SSCE basic education exams. That's coming from NECO. You find that story on page 11. COVID-19 death, police seal of Katsina late doctor's clinic. You find that story on page 14. And at the bottom page of the Punch newspaper, Kaduna threatens 14-day quarantine for travelers into state. You find that story on page 14. Pastor, 10-year-old boy, 2 others killed in Plateau raid. That story is on page 9. 9 killed, 2 policemen missing in fresh Benue attacks. You find that story also on page 9. Kesley.
Okay, so we'll take a look also at the Daily Sun, and most of the stories on the front page all focus on coronavirus, which is the main story around the world. An airpiece beside the nameplate of Daily Sun says Senate wants the federal government over stimulus package and vows to monitor funds and donations and other spending. Details on page 7. Now, below the nameplate, it says coronavirus. PTF, that's Presidential Task Force, denies 500 million naira sitting allowance. And as Air Peace makes 15-hour direct return flight from Beijing, COVID-19, Chinese doctors arrive Abuja. A number of riders to that, masks, other medical equipment also arrive. Their presence will have negative impact. That's according to the Nigerian Medical Association. Afenifere knocks government, Middle Belt Forum, and NARD, that is the Association of Resident Doctors, say nothing wrong with their coming. And you can see the aircraft there on the left side, and the Chinese medical team were upon their arrival at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, where, of course, they got in yesterday. They're supposed to be on quarantine for 2 weeks before they are set off to perform their duties. Federal government faults Wike on pilot's arrest, says flight authorized. And Rivers declares coveting helicopters persona non grata, directs closure of airlines offices in the state. Details on page 27. Concerns as fire guts Treasury House in Abuja and federal government to probe inferno. NNPC hands off refineries operation and management. That's page 2. And Lagos recalls 3rd COVID-19 death. Of course, there are 6 deaths throughout the country now. Lawan, that's Senate President, Bajabi Amila, Finance Minister, made proposed 20% reduction in capital projects. Details on page 27. So, those are the stories that we have on the front pages of the 2 papers we're taking a look at this morning. I mean, for me, 2 of the stories that are of interest relate to the increasing numbers of returnees who are using the land borders.
Yes.
Since the airports have been closed to traffic, regular traffic, with the exception, of course, specially scheduled flights, such as we saw with Air Peace, we are seeing more persons now coming through the land borders. But what exactly is being done, except for the fact to say, okay, once they come in, they will be in quarantine for
14 days.
For 14 days to see if any of them will manifest the symptoms of coronavirus, and once they get it all clear, they will be allowed to go into the general population. But we saw what happened in Osun State, which is why there was a spike suddenly in the number of persons with COVID-19, because these were returnees from Cote d'Ivoire. But if persons are coming in, then it also means that there is a burden on the receiving state.
Yes.
In this case, it is Lagos State, and perhaps Ogun State, depending on how the passengers decide to come, whether they are coming through Seme or whether they are coming through Idi Roko. Now, that places an additional burden on those states to set up facilities where they will receive these persons and house them, as it were, for 14 days while monitoring them. I know that the Lagos State government already has set up facilities in Badagry. That is for persons who already have COVID-19, and therefore they can be treated. Now, if passengers are using land borders and their numbers are increasing, so how then can the state governments, begin to look after such persons? I think it's important that the traffic through the land borders is reduced. It's reduced. I mean, it's not sufficient to say, okay, you can come in through land borders. Perhaps it can be done. So maybe on a weekly basis or the bi-weekly basis, we can take only so many passengers, whether you are Nigerian or otherwise. We can take only so many passengers that will come in, so that the quarantine facilities can be decontaminated once the set that had been there for 14 days, has taken off. Yes. Otherwise, before you know it, you have 1,000 persons. The facilities get overwhelmed. Some persons will sneak out, and you never can tell, who has the virus, and therefore will begin to spread it across the population.
And that's a border that is monitored. What about the other porous borders across the country that people just walk in?
That's right. That's right. That's a very pertinent aspect to also raise. I mean, it's Seme and Idiroko are highly regulated. But for the other porous borders, this is also a wake-up call for the Nigerian Immigration Service. They have to be up and doing and be sure that persons are not just sneaking in through these borders and then coming to the country. The other one is the obvious lack of communication between the Rivers State government and the Ministry of Aviation, over the flight that came in, was a helicopter service that came in from Lagos and brought in some passengers into Port Harcourt. The two pilots the pilot and the co-pilot of the helicopter were arrested, and of course they have been charged to court and remanded in custody until sometime next month.
What about the people they brought in?
Well, that's the state government is also taking its own measures against those persons. But now the argument by the Ministry of Aviation is that Caverton helicopters, had the permit to operate because the services are for the oil and gas sector. They run shuttle services, between Port Harcourt and Lagos or elsewhere in the Delta where you have oil facilities. Now, here the rider we are seeing is that Rivers declares Caverton helicopters persona non grata, directs closure of airlines offices in the state. I think it's a matter that the federal government and the Rivers State government will have to discuss. Instead of each issuing its own statement, the federal government through the Minister of Aviation issues its own statement, and then the Rivers State government issues its own statement. I think it's a matter that, as I said, they'll have to discuss and resolve, because at some point before Rivers State announced that it was closing its entry and exit points, it did say that it wasn't going to permit flights into the state, and that if flights came in, because it has no control over the airports, then the passengers and crew on those flights will have to find elsewhere to go, but not into Rivers State. This is because, the state says, look, we want to contain the spread of COVID-19. We are working, as it were, towards the same purpose. That's to say, the federal and the state governments working towards the same purpose. And where there's a misunderstanding like this, I think the best bet will be through diplomatic channels.
Yes, exactly. And these Chinese have brought in these materials as aid to Nigerians. I think it's going to help in a long way to, alleviate the suffering of those contracted with COVID-19, and will help Nigeria to sort of curb the spread. But I don't know how the spread is going to be in the distribution of these materials.
Well, I think it will be on the basis of need. To be on the There's been a lot of controversy over whether or not the medical team should come. I wouldn't know whether you and I were on set. NMA said, look, why are you bringing in doctors? They won't have the license to practice in Nigeria. They then said, look, no, they're bringing equipment, bringing other things that will assist, and also sharing in their experience, in dealing with this particular virus in the country. But they're here already, and then we'll see how it goes. I think it's very useful to take advantage of whatever they've brought. They say that with face masks in Aba. They're also producing face masks, and I think Kaduna is also rearing up for that. That's to say the textile.
Cross River State is producing.
Cross River is producing. The other ones are also producing, but they have other medical equipment that indeed we're not producing in the country at the moment.
Okay, let's go to the editorial now, and it's coming from the Nation newspaper. It's talking about cooperation and not confrontation. I'm just going to read a little bit out of that. COVID-19 calls for unity of purpose, not needless muzzle flexing. Despite clear instructions by President Muhammadu Buhari and his Minister of Information that journalists be allowed to move around by showing their ID cards, there have been reported cases of overzealous security operatives obstructing the media in their legitimate work. The Guild of Editors' observation on the harassment of media workers is apt. It should be noted that the media is a strategic partner in national affairs with the constitutional mandate of providing information to the populace. The body of editors hereby restates that media personnel are rendering essential services, and journalists should be commended for carrying out their constitutional mandate of sourcing stories and monitoring compliance with government directives in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic ravaging the world instead of being harassed. While the bulk of the people stay home, the media must move freely around to gather and distribute news and valuable information for the benefit of the public. Kesley.
Well, the editorial, as it were, speaks for itself.
Yes.
More essentially, it also raises the issue of the rules of engagement that the law enforcement officers have been given. I recall that just before we started having the lockdown in a number of states, and then the federally mandated lockdown in the FCT, Lagos and Ogun states, we had, for instance, the first public relations officer join us via Skype and say, look, you're going to have to use different policing methods, as it were, under the current circumstance. And the president, in his broadcast, was very clear as to persons who were exempted from those who are on essential services.
Exactly.
The media, of course, obviously fall into this category. Medical persons who are also on duty also fall into this category. Those who work in public utilities, for instance, providing water and power, also fall, into this category. So the essential thing has to do with those who are on the beat. The officers who are on the beat. If a journalist says, look, I'm going to work, and this is where it is, and the journalist identifies himself, and the thing is to allow the journalist to proceed. I do know, for instance, that in Lagos, the commissioner for police was insisting that possession of if a valid ID card from the workplace of a journalist would not suffice.
Why?
If you are not on duty and yet you have an ID card, why should you be on the road? I could see the sense in what he was saying, because I recall that in the past when you used to have elections, we still have elections, but in Lagos in the past when you used to have elections, you then were given a special accreditation by your company indicating that so and so person works with us. Of course, you already have your ID card and is covering so and so beat or XYZ, for purposes of the election. That way, we tended to reduce the number of persons who will be on the street. Otherwise, Nigerians, being on lockdown can be very boring. And so a person says, look, I have my ID card, I work in the media, let me be out on the street. Or
a policeman actually asked me, do you work for the federal government? Even after seeing my ID card, and I was wondering where he was coming from, actually. Well,
maybe your question should also have been to ask him whether he works for the federal government as well. That's right. Okay, so that does it for this review this morning. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with our items for discussion.
To say that some of these developing countries have shown a remarkable capacity to respond. I was quite impressed to see, for instance, Nigeria, and Africa is of course the main concern of us all, Nigeria putting in place immediately in a stadium an hospital. And I saw difficulties in countries that are much more developed to do quickly the same. So there are efforts done by countries in the developing world that we should point, because they represent a very strong determination, but the resources available are, of course, insufficient, and the health services are usually extremely out of proportion with the needs of a pandemic like this. So,
with success stories in Lagos, Ogun, and Akwa Ibom State, as well as voluntary monetary contribution from government, donors, and well-meaning Nigerians, the coronavirus pandemic is a war that must be won. Various states have a lot to contend with, owing to concerns like increase in number of cases of COVID-19, enforcement and compliance with the stay-at-home order by security personnel, and well-equipped medical facilities such as isolation centers and testing centers in some states. Daunting as these challenges might be, experts say a stakeholders meeting with health commissioners across the country on reviewing measures put in place to halt the spread of coronavirus will ameliorate the situation in the country. What is the level of compliance with the stay-at-home order in states across the Federation? Are there new measures put in place by state government to halt the spread of coronavirus? What is the level of surveillance and vigilance to protect communities from this pandemic? These are questions guests on Good Morning Nigeria will prefer answers to.
All right, many thanks, Abdul Malik Adio, for that backgrounder. We have guests joining us via Skype from Kebbi State. We're being joined by the Executive Governor of the state, Alhaji Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, via Skype. Your Excellency, a pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you. Good morning.
And from Abia State, we're also being joined by the Executive Governor of that state, His Excellency Dr. Okezie Ikpeazu. Excellency, a pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria via Skype.
Thank you, Kingsley. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Excellency. And from our Ibadan Network Center, we have Dr. Bashir Bello, who is the Commissioner for Health for your state. He's joining us via Skype. He's joining us, as I said, in the studios. Dr. Bashir Bello, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Clisey and Lady Jumai. Thank you.
And in Kwara State, we're being joined via Skype by Professor Wale Suleiman, Special Advisor to Kwara State Governor on Health and Vice Chairman, Kwara State. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning to you all. Thank you for inviting us.
Part of this conversation is Professor Abdusalami Nasidi, former Director General, Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Well, thank you so much for honoring our invitation as usual.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, gentlemen, once again, our pleasure to have you join us. As we indicated in our background chat while the program was kicking off this morning, we've been going around a number of states trying to find out, the level of preparedness in the event that coronavirus, hasn't made a landfall in such a state, or otherwise, taking various containment measures. Incidentally, both Kebbi and Abia have been lucky not to have registered any COVID-19 case, unless, of course, as we speak now, you already have cases that have been ticked off in your states. But let's begin with His Excellency Alhaji Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, who is the governor of Kebbi State. Tell us what you are doing in your state, or what you have done with regard to containment measures.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. But before then, I would like to use this opportunity to register my profound appreciation response by President Muhammad and the task force he has created, and the leadership of the NCDC. They have done a wonderful job, the Minister of Health and the Director General. And in Kebbi State, in addition to following through, adopting what has been measures that have been taken at the federal level, particularly measures that were designed for behavioral change, to change the behavior so that we can adopt more hygiene, more social distancing, traffic and gathering people that are not to be effective. Kebbi State joined other states in reducing interstate travel for a period of 2 weeks initially. We have closed our schools. We have mobilized our traditional institutions, religious leaders, community leaders, and there has been a quite remarkable awakening that indeed a disease called COVID-19, and that this disease can be prevented by behavioral changes and social distancing and responsibility for our actions. And it has been working, and I must commend the good people of Kebbi State. We set up a task force that have been doing a wonderful job akin to what has been doing at the national level, and in increasing awareness that
Okay, are you still with us? Okay, apart from closing down schools and, closing down your borders and interstate travel, what is the state of facilities in your hospital in case, if and when, we don't pray, it happens?
An isolation center, which we have set up at a facility called Kebbi Medical Center located at Kalgo. I believe we have 2 doctors in an intensive care unit again set up, which has been pre-existing at Sayahaya Memorial Hospital in Birnin Kebbi, and we are daily embarking on awareness, hand washing campaign, sanitization campaign, mask wearing campaigns. A lot of philanthropists have joined us. A lot of activity by Her Excellency have also supported what we are doing in order to ensure that it doesn't happen.
Thank you very much, Governor. We will return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's go over now to Abia State, where we earlier introduced Dr. Okeze Ikpeazu, the governor of Abia. Your Excellency, I mean, Abia is a business state. Apart from being commercial, it's also industrial. How have the measures that you have introduced gone down well, with the residents and other citizens in that location?
Well, thank you very much. I thank God that as we speak, we are yet to record or register a case of COVID-19 patient in Abia State. This is largely due to the grace of God and our ability to follow through the protocols enunciated by NCDC. The only thing that is special in Abia is that we have a strong telehealth infrastructure. We launched it in 2016, and all our 774 primary health care centers are connected via telehealth to a call center in Government House. What it means is that the strength of all the 774 primary health care centers is equivalent to the strength of our 12 doctors that take care of calls coming in from everywhere. This has helped us in reporting and tracking and testing of those who have come up with complaint, and up till now, all the results have returned negative. We also have a very, very powerful geriatric outreach where we reach those who are 70 years and above at their homes. And this has been on for over 18 months now, before this time. So all we needed to do was to engage all of these initiatives to help us do the needful. Our awareness has been very robust because our strategy is twofold: prevention and then being able to care for patients if the case arise back to health. And prevention, we thank the media, we thank the traditional rulers, we thank our town criers, we thank the churches and market leaders. Everybody understands how important it is. You have to be alive for you to be able to do business or do trading. And that is what we have done. You also are aware that we are making some modest contribution to the manufacturing and production of face masks as well as PPE. Later today, you will be looking at our environmental health officers going for fumigation, and all the dresses, all the gear, all the apparel they will have done are all manufactured by our people here, and they are capable of protecting them even in the line of this.
Okay, you know, apart from measures to curtail movement and all that, you've also started production of medical kits and masks. Okay, well, sorry, Abia State governor is out there, is gone, the Skype is on. We'll now go to the to Kwara State, where Professor Wale Suleiman, Special Advisor to Kwara State Governor on Health and Vice Chairman Kwara State for Task Force on COVID-19. If you can hear me, you've had some cases of COVID-19 in your state. What is the level of the facility that is being in place there to sort of curb the spread of COVID-19? What do you have on ground?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning again. I must say that His Excellency Malam Abdurrahman Abdulrazak has always focused on healthcare, transformation of the healthcare industry in Kwara State, even before the issue of COVID-19. We were one of the first states to establish an isolation center, and we were also able to put measures in place quickly to be able to make sure we prevent social gathering. We closed our schools. We also instituted partial shutdown by actually only allowing shops that were selling medications and foodstuff to open. We banned all Okadas and Maruas and taxis. So we were doing extremely well. And then we constituted a very robust and excellent technical committee, which I co-chaired as the vice chairman. And the strategy we employed was there are 4 classes of patients that could be affected by COVID-19. The first, which is the large majority of them, if you have an issue, is the people that need to be quarantined. The second ones are people that are a large second group, people that may be positive but asymptomatic. Those that may be symptomatic need some oxygen therapy, and then the highest level is the critical care patients. And immediately we did that, we actually created 1,000-bed capacity. And by shutting down one of our hospitals called Sobi Specialist Hospital to acquire 350 beds, and then we're now using our Hatch camp to create an additional 600-bed capacity where we can quarantine people. And at the Sobi Hospital, we can take care of this group.
Okay, Professor Wale, if you're still with us, you know, even apart from having the COVID-19 cases in your state, you only closed down Offa. What about the rest of the state?
Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, ma'am?
My question is, you know, even after having COVID-19 cases in Kwara State, you only shut down Offa. What about the rest of the state? What's happening there?
So as you know, these things are dynamic. I think the OFA situation is because the two patients that we have that are positive, they're from OFA. And we wanted to make sure when you don't shut down, you shut down so that we can improve your capacity to be able to do contact tracing. You can eliminate community transmission. We wanted to intensify our efforts to be able to track down those that may have had contact with the two positive patients. One of them is the wife of a deceased individual that came in from the United Kingdom, and the other one also came in from the United Kingdom. They were both residents in Ufa. The second scenario is that the patient that died, who had traveled to the United Kingdom but was never tested positive, was never tested for COVID-19, was also buried in Ufa, and there was a lot of people that attended that burial ceremony, the burial event. So Ufa is now the hotspot for us in Kwara State in trying to tackle COVID-19. But we're looking at all areas of Kwara State. We're considering on a daily basis to see what additional measures we're going to take. Today, we're taking some decisions with regards to what we should do in terms of total lockdown, what areas we need to pay attention to. You have to remember that every step that we take has significant repercussions and social implications. So if you do shut down, how long can you sustain it? How long can you feed people? What's your capacity to be able to provide amenities for people? So, but again, today, we're taking additional steps. OFA was shut down last evening, and people seem to be very compliant. But it's a dynamic process. Today, we're going to take additional steps to make sure we can enable our healthcare workers to do contact tracing and minimize spread.
All right, Professor Suleiman, thank you very much. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's go over now to Ibadan, where we are introduce Dr. Bashir Bello, who is the Oyo State Commissioner for Health. Dr. Bello, give us an update on what Oyo State has been up to with regard to measures against COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Kingsley, and thank you all our listeners. Oyo State government has actually taken a proactive step in this direction. First of all, it's on record that we have about 11 confirmed cases, out of which 2 has been discharged, and we're actually following up 75 cases at the moment. It will be recalled that 7 cases imported from, I will not say imported, that is part of the, the land transmission. And they have been isolated for about 20 days in Osun State. About those 7 were returned to us about 3 days ago. We also isolated them for about 48 hours, during which we repeated the negative test because they have tested negative before they left Osun State. So we repeated the same test, and they have been reunited with their families, in a very good state. Before that, the state had set up the EOC with all the pillars functioning. Again, the state government had been able to give some financial assistance to the University College Hospital in setting up an ideal laboratory. The NCDC has approved the University College Hospital Department of Virology Laboratory, where tests are now being done. And the NCDC has also allotted that laboratory for both Ogun State and Kwara States for testing. On the other side, we are already planning, or not just planning, we have established right now a full major center, that is Olodo Infectious Disease Center, which is the state-of-the-art center to contain not only the COVID-19 case, but any form of epidemics. In the tropics, we live in a land that we follow up these things seasonally, occasionally. Part of this is a fully developed center with different routes, that is flows, we call it in medicine, for the patients as well as the health workers on the other side. It has a very developed center for patients with intensive care units, those that are really symptomatic and really need very intensive care. Then, apart from that, as soon as you're able to get some relief, that is people improving from the intensive care unit, they can now move into the HDU, that is the high dependency unit. After leaving the high dependency unit and the case seems to be improved, we now move you to the normal post-recovery ward, we call it. And through that route, a well-recovered patient that has tested twice negative can now be rejoined with the family in a route that will not, come in contact with anybody within the hospital premises. Special provisions have been made for the health workers to attend them. The halls and the different wards have been covered with CCTV so that the patients are being monitored. Well-piped ventilator routes have been engaged, or rather installed. And patients in HDU, all by their bedside, have all these monitoring machines for all the different vital signs to be taken at this time. Apart from that, don't forget that the state had an isolation center with limited number, that is at the Agbami unit. We also have the University College Hospital Isolation Center, as well as the Lautech Teaching Hospital and the Odogbo Barracks. Already the state is in agreement with some banks, particularly Access Bank, Unity Bank, in improving on some of our centers. They are actually committed to giving us a 200-bed center, and this had been allocated to Shaki as well as our centers at Ibuora. The Lautech Teaching Hospital too is being planned for further developmental purposes. Apart from that, you will recall that His Excellency, the Executive Governor for your state, who also is the head of the COVID-19 task force team, had actually addressed the press conference yesterday and has enumerated all these that I'm actually repeating on here now. Not only that, he had made it look into other 4 sites because of the socio-economic implication of the partial lockdown. A lot of considerations was made during the COVID-19 task force meeting, and some steps were taken. All those were revealed in the press conference held yesterday at the government house after the COVID-19 meeting. Again, the people of the state are being briefed on a regular basis by the COVID-19 team. We are actually getting ready for legislation because the Oyo State government is looking into, well, we thank God for the level of compliance with the curfew in place, that is between 6 and 7 p.m. and to 6 a.m. in the morning. The level of compliance has been quite satisfactory. But you see, we still have people who, for one reason or the other, would like to defy, or like to seize on due opportunities to be working around. And because this is of major public health interest, if we consider the amount of money His Excellency, the Executive Governor of your state, has expended on this COVID-19 ever since it started.
Still talking about the Oyo State Governor, Seyi Makinde, who tested positive to coronavirus on March 30, few days after he was been given a clean bill of health. And then would like to know what were the defining steps the state took when it tested positive for coronavirus. That's my first question. Also, the chairman of the governing board of the university. You can't hear me. Okay, we'll come back now in the studio where Professor Nasidi is seated here with us. We've heard so much from the state governors on what they've been doing, to sort of curb the spread of COVID-19 in their states. But are we doing enough?
Well, I will first of all start by congratulating Nigeria that this outbreak has mobilized the leaders. So the key in fighting this disease is to have the right leadership, the command structure, to have good coordination, and then good cooperation between public and private sector. As you can see, virtually all the states in the Federation, we have the state governors in the lead. And this is something new, and this is something great. So that's a great achievement, and I'm very happy to hear some of the governors or even the health commissioners speaking on behalf of their governors on what they are doing. I think this now shows that we are on seat. Unfortunately, the virus has escaped and is now transmitting in the community. So now that means the battlefield is virtually now being shifted from the urban areas, most likely, into rural, and then also from the federal level to lower levels and so on and so forth. So for us to win this battle, we need to really, really mobilize the states, the LGAs, to start reaching the people. And as the governor of Kebbi State mentioned, first and foremost, educate the people, do strong health promotion, to change their behavior, but primarily for them to accept that it is a problem. Because many at that lower level believe that it's not a disease that they will get, because it came through people, elites who came from abroad. So they are looking at it and say, oh, this is not our disease, it's a big man disease. Then when the diseases were brought into Nigeria by those who came from abroad, and then some governors caught it. So up till now, it has not trickled down to the masses of Nigeria. Really, this is real.
And we hope it doesn't, actually.
Yeah, well, no, we hope it doesn't come. But the information is what I'm talking about. Yes. The information must reach every Nigerian that this is real, it's really spreading worldwide, it's killing people, and everybody must do what he has to do to make sure that he protects himself.
I just want to, Professor Nasidi, I mean, your first commendation for the leadership direction that we are seeing with regard to dealing with the COVID-19, either in terms of containment or mitigation of the effects. But you also acknowledge that the virus has escaped, and we are now seeing more and more instances of community transmission. What is it that you are seeing throughout the Federation, that's to say amongst the states, in terms of their own containment measures? We see some states are on partial lockdown, others have said, look, we're on total lockdown, no entry, no exit. So how might these disparate measures assist in disrupting the transmission of the virus, or otherwise be an avenue for the virus to further escape into the larger population?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. You see the response at that level from the state governors and state level, and this is so crucial that there is coordination. Yes, if some states are thinking, oh, we don't have it now, or we have very few cases, and the measures they are taking are not uniform, are not coordinated, it can be really dangerous. So I'm happy that there's what they call the Governors Forum, and also avenues where the governors can be meeting with the president and so on and so forth, where the real coordination of the activities of the states will be handled. We also have the Presidential Task Force, which will provide that leadership, which is already providing that leadership. And, of course, states that have more cases will tend to do more of locking down and so on and so forth. But as the doctor, I think from Kwara State, the commissioner or advisor to the governor was saying that it's dynamic, and the best thing to do is to be able to increase our capacity to do contact tracing and track the virus, track the people that have come in contact with this. For instance, in Kwara, in Ofa, that story is really pathetic, and it's like a bomb, a time bomb. If they can't really reach the people who came for the burial, and they're only locking down Ofa, that might not be as effective as they are thinking, because a lot of the people who went for that burial might actually have come from Ilori and so on. So the tracking and the net should be wider, So the tactics on how to handle the spread of the virus has to be uniform, but the enforcement might be different in terms of intensity of transmission. For instance, Lagos can't take chances. We now know that in Nigeria, the hottest spot is Lagos. And luckily, the governor is on top of it. The commissioner is feeding the country every day, and they are tracking. Even though we couldn't, reach most of the contacts that came with the Italian who first was diagnosed as having the virus, maybe about 70%. So the 30% were missed, and they could have actually gone into the community. So also the new incomes. So I think the Director General of NCDC has mentioned that they are now expanding their net to be able to catch up with these people. But in the case of community transmission, the contact tracing and the tracking of the virus is a different ball game.
What makes it a different ball game? I mean, so that the other guests can benefit from your experience. What makes contact tracing in community transmission a different ball game?
Here, the community leaders play a key role. There's no high level, low level. You cannot get some of this effectively done without, the local leaders, the religious leaders, people that you use to really reach those you want to trace. That's one. And two, is at times you could get reactions. If you're over tracing, you enter the community that are not very friendly, you can have a big problem. Then the third one is, how to convince after you have traced the contact and you want now to take the contact for isolation. It's not the same way you do, let's say, in Abuja. And if you go to, some of the peripheries here and so on and so forth. So the approach, the tactic strategy is a little bit different. So, and then finally, the outreach in terms of health system that can be used to reach these people are there. That is the time that the role of the primary healthcare system is so important.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Professor Nasidi. Let's return to Governor Bagudu of Kebbi State via Skype from Birnin Kebbi, the capital of a state. Your Excellency, I mean, you've listened to your brother governor from Abia and as well as the other experts who are here with us in the studios. I mean, this is like you have a forewarning of what the weather might be, in your particular environment. What more would you like to do, for instance, in your state? Yes, enlightenment is going on, but have you really been able to break down the barriers with regard to resistance as to whether this exists or it doesn't exist, and more particularly, observation of persons who might be manifesting these symptoms and then mistaking it for some other ailments?
I lost the last bit of. Hello?
Let me repeat. I'm asking whether what more would you like to see done in terms of breaking down any resistance with regard to just whether or not COVID-19 is real and how soon it might hit. Maybe it's something that is afflicting people in Abuja and Lagos and other places, and it hasn't come yet. It's not our portion, X, Y, Z. That is one. And more particularly, for members of your task team to be on the lookout in terms of identifying persons, who have symptoms that could be mistaken, for other kinds of ailments without themselves presenting their cases, to formal health institutions.
As if we can't hear you, Kesley. Yeah. We'll now be joining. Okay, it's back. Can you take the question again, Kesley?
Well, Your Excellency, can you hear me now? If he can, but I'll let our engineers clear that up and then we'll return to him. Let's go back to Dr. Okezie Ikpeazu, the governor of Abia State. Now, Your Excellency, earlier you were outlining some of the measures that Abia has taken. Of course, production of PPEs and face masks, and more particularly, you talked about the telehealth using the primary healthcare system as well as the geriatric outfit. Give us a sense of how this has worked and the reception of your people to these modalities with regard to what you are trying to do, plus every other thing else that is on the protocols of the NCDC.
Yeah, we are lucky because we had started these initiatives long before now. Particularly, our geriatric outreach is very popular because we had started meeting the old people in the comfort of their homes and taking care of them. So they were able to welcome the team when they came with this new narrative about COVID-19 and also reminding them that they are particularly vulnerable because they have somewhat compromised immunity as a result of their age. And it has worked well. And I want to also say that the disbelief initially and the pessimism of our people, we tackled it using the institutions we have already, the traditional rulers, the churches, the mosques, and the president generals of the various town unions, and then the leadership of the markets. So it wasn't very difficult to let our people know that you have to be alive in the first place for you to be able to make money. Beyond that, our lockdown strategy has also been very, very useful because this virus does not have legs. It is people that take it from one place to the other. And human beings are very, very mobile targets. You can see a man here today, in the next 1 second he is in Umuahia or somewhere else or in Port Harcourt. So we had to ask our people to stay at home and we lock our borders so that we can give ourselves 14 days. If within 14 days we don't come up with symptoms at home, because already the primary healthcare centers are there to pick up hints, even in the remote local governments and communities. So we are able to track people who come with symptoms as far as Umunochi and Arochukwu, and we have 6 ambulances that go there to pick them, and we take samples, assess them, and then take it from there. So we have been on top of the game, and we have done the first 10 days. We have just 4 days to go. If after 4 days we are still all okay and fine here, then we will do a review and know what else to do from there.
As much as the tempo, in sustaining the tempo of COVID-19, what are the silent issues that are out there that you need to address?
Oh yes, I think the most important thing is for all of us together to define our strategy and ensure that we key into the leadership and protocol of NCDC. I have said it elsewhere that this is a battle, and in a battle there is need for concerted effort. We cannot sing discordant tunes at a time like this. That is why all the things we are doing dovetail from the protocols coming from NCDC. But going forward, I think we need to do a little more in terms of this coordination, and we also need to know what to do. Even as we have lockdown, are we just going to lock down and stay in the house? The answer is no. It is an opportunity to do fumigation of the institutions, of the schools, of the market, of the public places that our people will return to when they come out from the lockdown. And then we hope that Nigeria, the way we are going, will very soon be on top of this and flatten the curve, and then everybody will be happy.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ikbazu. Let's see if our Skype back to Alhaji Bagudu, Governor of Kebbi, it's back on. If I can see him on the screen, then that will be an indication that it's all okay. All right, Your Excellency, if you can hear us, just to repeat the question I popped earlier, I was saying that what more would you like to do? I mean, knowing that as Professor Nasidi has said, this virus has escaped into the community. Not all states are on total lockdown, and persons are still sneaking around. What is it that members of your task team are doing to further sensitize the people, break down whatever last resistance there is as to whether or not this virus or this disease is real or not, and more particularly for them to report symptoms that may mimic other kinds of ailments that we are all familiar with, whether it's malaria or otherwise?
I think what I would like to see being done more is the appreciation that this is not a short-term thing. We need to be vigilant over a good period of time, 6 months, maybe a year more, because we have to continue to observe those measures in order to ensure that we interrupt any chance for community transmission. And then, but this costs money. And then the social distancing measures require such changes in behavior that we need to continue to advertise, we need to continuously to call upon community leaders, youth, and all kind of groups to continue, media, to continue to advocate so that it will be an essential element of our. Also, we are in a federation. The federal government has been very best that it could. The state governors are talking to each other, are coordinating with each other. We appreciate challenges are different from one place to the other. And the private sector has been quite helpful. Institutions utilizing funds is to put in awareness and support of the health practitioners so that they will continue to respond to suspicious cases, because it happens. Sometimes there are calls, sometimes there are mistaken calls. You can't ignore any. And as heroic as they are, we need to invest in protection equipment for them that will continue to deliver and to strike the message home that this is real and everyone can do or can help. But I'm very, very happy with both our national response and coordination between states and the response of the Nigerian populace. But lastly, it's a wish that I would like coordination from this. For example, Nigeria, the first case came from Italy. The two other cases, one came from United Kingdom, one came from the US. But when they are announcing massive amounts of money to deal with the issue, we didn't hear anything that goes to show that this is an international problem that all needs to come and join hands together.
From measures being put in place to curb the spread of COVID-19 in Kebbi State, hunger is a bigger disease. What are the palliative measures you have in place for your people apart from the federal government intervention?
Well, thank you. First, we locked down in terms of shutting activities down. We even measures recognized state has a large population that is in farming, in fishing, in livestock, and going to the farms is a form of isolation. So we encourage them to do so that both their production and their contribution to national output will not. So then also people, our task force are encouraging community support, because we have responsibility towards each other in order to support each other. Those whose harvest is good can always support others. It is always a part of our anthropology. Lastly, the state government is investing in buying some food items, and supported by other donors, states, individuals, federal. We are mobilizing to deliver those commodities to those who are most vulnerable, who need such additional support.
Bagudu, well, we'll return to you with the course of the conversation. Let's join again Professor Wale Suleiman, Special Advisor to the Kwara State Governor. Professor Suleiman, okay, you can see him on the right side of your screen. Now, I mean, until a few days ago, Kwara wasn't on the radar, as it were. And then all of a sudden, you know, we heard of this case, the gentleman who arrived from the UK, obviously through Lagos. And I mean, he didn't fly on his own into Kwara. And of course, he must have come, you know, by land transportation, and then found his way into the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital, where we understand that a number of medical personnel who were in contact with him, you know, have also now gone into self-isolation. How challenging is this situation that you have on your hands, and considering that you're having to lock down off a town, you know, and then of course we don't know how long this is going to last, and how much cooperation are you getting from the people? How are you contact tracing? Is it by appeal? I mean, is it just by depending on the goodwill of persons to, you know, self-indicate that yes, they were in touch with so and so person who was at the funeral in Offa? Oh no, I was at UITH when this gentleman was brought in while he was manifesting the symptoms of coronavirus.
Thank you very much. And it's indeed a challenging situation because we were doing so well. Our initial focus, once the committee was put in place, was to prevent importation of any case into Kwara State. So we shut our land borders. But this situation is an individual that came into the United Kingdom, into Lagos, and then came to the State, and was advised by a friend who also happens to be a professor of infectious diseases to self-isolate. And but the authorities were not notified. The state authority was not notified. And when he became really sick, he took this individual to University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital, again without notifying the authorities or the healthcare workers at the hospital. Even after the demise, was not until after the demise of the patient that eventually we found out that he was actually it was in the United Kingdom and came back from the United Kingdom. The advice to not bury him, so that we could do some post-mortem tests.
Yes, it's like the Skype is going off. We'll now go to the Ibadan studio where Dr. Bashir Bello, Commissioner for Health, is waiting. Recently, we heard of the governor getting infected with COVID-19, and then what were the measures you took? What were the strategic measures you took to ensure that he got out well?
Thank you very much. Probably before then, as I've told you earlier, you know, the executive governor is actually the head of the COVID-19 task force. And that was why, you know, leading by example, he actually tested himself and some top members of his cabinet, including myself, you know, and when the result came, he decided to self-isolate and then left off the management and the procedures of the state COVID-19 task force to Professor Temitope Alunge. Well, in his news report or briefing yesterday, he actually stated some number of measures he took. the application of some black oil and some other therapies, and that was why in his statement he said we shall also, not going against the NCDC regulations, but looking inwards to see what our natural therapeutic measures could also offer. By the time it was retested, we generally take about 2 negative tests, and it was okay. In fact, his first intention was to actually go, as he has started, to inspect the Olodo Infectious Disease Center, as well as the EOC, and then he inspected even the ambulances he has ordered, the new ambulances he has ordered specifically to be able to convey all suspected cases to either the isolation centers or wherever necessary treatment might be offered. For his outcome, we want to know that he was never actually sick. Throughout his stay, he remained asymptomatic. That is, he never had any symptoms, not even respiratory symptoms. That is one of the funniest things. But the fact that the test had come positive, he took all necessary measures as dictated by the NCDC guidelines. And as soon as even the 14-day period has expired, as well as the negative tests are okay, he came out, fully healthy, as he was before, and he is now, So apart from those who could probably take apart from the Western something, I don't think he took much of the Western medical something. He took mostly some of our naturopathic devices, and he's quite okay. He tested negative. But the issue actually was that I personally believe he has a very strong immune system that actually overcame it. Let me, before ending this, you talk about I don't know if there's any question about His Excellency's farewell or mother, his health. He's quite okay, nothing to worry about, because he went into self-isolation, took some medications like the black oil and some other things which he had prescribed and he had given to pressmen yesterday in his news briefing, and he's quite very well healed and healthy. In fact, some people were calling me on phone saying that we pray for good recovery from your governor. I said, look, His Excellency is healthier than the two of us talking. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bashir Bello, Commissioner for Health, Oyo State. We'll come back to you in the course of the program, but we need to take a break right now. When we return, more on our...
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. Professor Wale Suleiman, we lost you while you were just explaining how challenging the situation is with regard to the apparent mismanagement of the case that was a returnee from the UK that got into University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital and thereafter on to offer. I had a number of questions relating to all of that, how you are trying to contact trace. Is it by appeal or just relying on the goodwill of the people themselves? And what is the condition of offer on the one hand, as well as UITH, where there was a lot of contact, with medical personnel?
So sorry about the bad connection. So as I was saying, immediately after this happened, the UITH leadership constituted a committee to investigate what's going on. We immediately put 24 contacts, healthcare workers on self-isolation, because healthcare workers, they knew exactly what to do, and they were self-isolating themselves for the following 14 days. So they're there. And then we've generated now almost up to 100 contact lists that we're actively tracing. One of the decisions that we had to make was what to do with so we then tested the people that were close contact to the deceased, because again, he's a high suspect because of his travel history and because he had some symptoms that were not notified. So his wife was tested, the professor that was treating him was tested, His wife was the first positive case, and she's doing well. She's now in the isolation center in Specialist Hospital. She's asymptomatic, but because she was positive, we had to isolate her. The second case is another UK returnee that also is asymptomatic, is in the isolation center. So now the real world work is now cut out for us. We are doing aggressive contact tracing. We had to shut down OFA because you know what happens when someone dies in our culture. A lot of people move to go and they go to the widower's house to try and console them. So we had to move her out of population and be able to isolate it ourselves. But also we had to be able to move around to be able to get in touch with the people on our contact tracing list. There's one peculiarity that we're all kind of forgetting. See, when we talk about self-isolation, is not most of our people in this country, they live in crowded environments. So one of the strategies that we're using is, we are going to provide the opportunity for people to isolate in our centers. That's why we created a 1,000-bed capacity. We take people out of the environment and actually isolate them ourselves and monitor them for 2 weeks to make sure they're not symptomatic. The second thing is that one of the things that was done in China and even in the United States, in New Orleans, where I used to live, is aggressive temperature checking. So as we're distributing palliatives, we're also checking temperatures to make sure that people that have high fever, we take them to the isolation center. So we're now moving we're not ignoring the strategy to prevent importation because our borders are still closed. So now we're focusing on preventing aggressively curbing the community transmission of the disease by contact tracing. We have a very robust surveillance team, about 2,000 people in our surveillance team, from the disease surveillance and reporting officers, assistant, and then to reporting officers and to community informers. So that has been deployed, they've been trained, they're working all around the clock to kind of make sure we go and seek people out that may have symptoms. This is not, it's not been an easy task, but I think we have very experienced people that can tackle this. We're also linking with the traditional leaders, community leaders. They've been very supportive in terms of, both in terms of providing some relief to the people that have been affected by the measures we put in place, distribution of palliatives, which is in thousands of bags of rice, of gari, of vegetable oil that has been distributed. So we're combining the medical approach to check temperatures with palliatives. We're focusing on our borders to make sure we don't have additional importation while we're trying to tackle these two cases. And contact tracing is going in a very robust way. We have built teams to focus on different areas. So there's the issue of community education and awareness. There's the issue of people focusing on contact tracing and making sure we take people out of circulation. There's the issue of the border remaining closed to make sure there's no importation. There's the issue of what do you do when how do you create capacity to make sure you can actually take care of people that need to be taken care of. So,
okay, thank you so much Professor Wale Suleiman. We'll get back to you in the course of the conversation. I'm back here in the studio, Professor Nasidi. We had the Commissioner for Health in Oyo State saying his governor used black seed oil and other traditional medicine. We're discussing about COVID-19 and drug security. That was on Tuesday, Kingsley, remember? And, people were talking about, okay, what about our alternative medicine? Where does it come in here?
Well, this is a very good example of a situation where we can't ignore the effectiveness of some of these alternative medicines. For instance, many of them are capable of boosting your immunity. So they are not specific against the virus. Up till as we are speaking now, there is no specific drug that can, check the virus or kill the virus at all. So that's why they say no vaccines. So no vaccines yet available, no treatment. So all the treatments that the patients are receiving in isolation or the treatment centers are palliative. They are treating symptoms and making life easier for the patient to be able to breathe, to be able to fight the disease, to boost his immunity. So I won't be surprised if the black seeds that the executive governor for your state mentioned, and even the amala he said he was eating, and so many other things could have worked. You can never rule that out at this stage. And some of these things we are seeing them to be even effective in people living with HIV/AIDS. You know, they are not just taking the HIV/AIDS drug, specific antiretroviral, but they take other, traditional, alternative medicines that help to boost their immunity to fight the virus.
I just want to, Professor Nasiri, thanks. You mentioned amala. I don't know whether he didn't mention the kind of soup that went with the amala. Whether it was begiri is Ogun State, that is more of a Jebu soup, or whether it was ewedu or something. The Commissioner for Health is smiling. Is smiling. He also mentioned a number of things, but boosting the immunity. It's a conversation we've had on Good Morning Nigeria, and we're going to we also have to return to. And indeed, I believe that I think about 72 hours after we discussed alternative or complementary responses, to COVID-19, WHO now started talking, on its own officially about boosting the immune system. But there's one thing I would like Professor Nasiri to also respond to. The federal government has warned private hospitals from treating COVID-19 cases. Why do you think this is necessary?
This is very, very necessary, because if the virus starts transmitting among their staff, it will be very, very dangerous, and it can kill the private sector medical service itself. So that's why yesterday the PTF, the chairman of the PTF came out and said, look, we are not stopping private sector to participate in providing treatment, because we need more space, we need more bed capacity, and almost 60% of Nigerians actually seek their health service through the private sector. But the only private sectors that can provide that service are those that can, institute this infection prevention and control effectively. So if you say any private sector should listen, in fact, we are advising any private sector clinic or center that sees the sign of this disease should immediately contact, the NCDC or any public institution where they have established the isolation and treatment centers that has taken into consideration all these IPCs. There are some private hospitals that are very good, and they can immediately actually start providing the center. But I'm happy that the PTF said before they do that, if freely, there must be accreditation. So if the accreditation process can start quickly, so many states in the country have very good private hospitals that can provide the service.
Okay, now we have, Juma, we have a number of tweets.
Quite much.
So that we don't run out of time. I just wanted to ask Governor Okezie Ikpeazu and his brother governor in Kebbi, this question. But it's very significant in terms of what we're talking about, self-isolation. Professor Suleiman did mention that, okay, self-isolation can be a major challenge, particularly in the nature of accommodation that people have, a bit crowded and so on and so forth. But I have read a report of at least one state that has now issued an advisory, if not a warning, to hoteliers to take copious details of their guests at this time, because of the suspicion that some persons are now seeking to lodge in hotels in the name of self-isolation. And of course, when they are self-isolating, assuming they have the symptoms, they're going to be served, there will be room service, there will be the housekeepers, there will be, catering services and so on and so forth. Is this an issue that should be of worry, of a hint, as it were, to other state governments as to what they need to do, assuming persons, have sneaked into the population with the symptoms and they want to go and self-isolate in a hotel? Dr. Ikpeazu.
Yeah, thank you very much. Our experience is that our task force moved around hotels, especially in Aba and Umuahia. It is not profitable to even harbor guests now since we started this lockdown, because if you have just one guest or two, in a 200-room hotel, what it means is that you will run diesel power for just 2 rooms. So most hotels are empty for now, and we expect that they will remain so for the next 14 days. But I want to please add that there is something slightly unique we are doing in Abia, because we are distributing our palliatives through the churches as our first line of distribution, churches and mosques, because we do not want these palliatives to go into wrong hands. And we are targeting 70% of those who are very, very vulnerable. We believe that the mosques and the churches know the widows, they know the poor persons, and they are people of high regard and responsibility. And I think we trust them to do the needful. But in the coming weeks, we are also going to begin to take care of distribution through President Generals of town unions and the traditional rulers. We have an office that is taking care of people with physical disability and the motherless babies' homes. So we have a very robust way of pushing down our palliative items. This is irregular. It is not what we used to do before, and some politicians may not be happy with it because it can no longer be hijacked. I want them to exercise patience because these are trying times, and we have to try to target those who really, really need this. These are war times, and we need to be careful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ekpeazu. Alhaji Bagudu, Governor of Kebbi State, I mean, virtually the same question with regard to, monitoring hotels. But while we were reviewing the newspapers, my colleague Jumai and I, of course, did comment on the report of passengers who are now using the land borders to come into the country. A number of them, of course, are being put in isolation in the Lagos area. But Jumai raised a very pertinent point that we have a number of illegal entry points into the country. Is Kebbi also now likely to spread its dragnet to be sure that these, along of course with the Immigration Service, that these illegal entry points are more closely monitored?
Well, thank you. Kebbi is one of those states in Nigeria that has borders with more than one country. We have borders with Niger Republic and Benin Republic. But we may recall that even before the COVID-19 issue, the Nigerian Customs Services have been conducting exercises in our borders which have limited the movement of goods and persons. And following the COVID-19, both Benin and Niger have also imposed travel restrictions. So the combined effect of those two has served reduce movement to the barest minimum. But being that the border is contiguous, you can hardly eliminate that somebody or a person walking across a farmland to enter another country. But the watchword has been vigilance and public awareness that it's important to report this, it's important to report symptoms, it's important to observe all the social distancing measures. We believe the more people are willing to take individual responsibility, the more we are comfortable that we can handle the COVID challenge. Secondly, in terms of hotels and other commercial activities, the Balancing Act is how to help, how to quickly figure out a way in which activity safely. And that again comes back to individual responsibility, whether the whole to
Thank you so much, Governor Bagudu. We'll return to you before the program ends. We have a number of tweets that came in, and we begin with Akiju Olagbaju. He said, The directive given by federal and state government on social distance compliance is in jeopardy. It is no longer observant in some states, as seen in the news of recent. Some have waived it ahead of upcoming events. There is need for more synergy between the federal and state governments.
Ibrahim Moduaji writes in the same vein. He says some states are yet to impose social distancing measures, despite their neighboring state recording COVID-19 cases. There are normal activities ongoing without regard to measures to frustrate community transmission.
Comrade Alingala tweets, in my own state, that's Borno State, I want to use this opportunity to thank my governor, Professor Umara Zulum, for taking serious measures against COVID-19.
Now, Festus Akimboyewa, there's no doubt that the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 continues to grow. Since the cases are important, as confirmed, public health departments should be empowered to carry out massive testing in our communities.
And Law Officer C tweets, here in Abuja State, God's own country state, is no incidence of COVID-19, and we are not expecting any, while the government has come up with palliatives to cushion the negative effects of a 2-week lockdown.
Bashiru says, if the sit-at-home order is to be effective, we need a change in strategy in the way the palliatives are provided. The use of cash or material distribution will further increase the risks of contagion. And a possible solution is the use of mobile payment solutions.
And Sani Michael Ogmokaji tweets, kudos to Nigerian doctors on duty for this national assignment. What is making COVID-19 to escalate is the superstitious belief of some Nigerians who think there is no COVID-19, no coronavirus pandemic. However, that Taraba and Bayelsa are no longer safe.
Now, Mustafa Adebowale says the masses are not obeying the stay-at-home order. It says law enforcement agents need to move into the streets and see how people are playing football, which developed countries and other leagues stopped due to the pandemic.
In Sima, spelled it Pal Akong, in my state, Akwa Ibom, when the first 5 cases were reported by NCDC, the state government denied it and was playing politics with the numbers. So far, so good. The 5 cases I learned are stable and in good condition.
Agbefo Shadrach says, unfortunately, our numbers in terms of COVID-19 are increasing. I think the lockdown should be extended. Well done, NTA, and good morning, Nigeria crew.
Uncle Obaji Good Friday tweets like, seriously, Nigeria does not need any foreigner at this critical period. I hope and pray what happened in Italy will not happen in Nigeria.
All right, we have other tweets from Fonahami Idris, Sani Balarabe, Ibrahim Bello, and Delight 200. We'd like to thank you all for the comments that you have sent in on the program. It's on that note, we'd like to also express our deep appreciation to all our guests, 5 of them this morning, 2 governors, of course, joining us via Skype. His Excellency, Executive Governor of Kebbi State, Alhaji Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, would like to thank you for being with us on today's program.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
Thank you.
We also would like to appreciate Dr. Okeze Ikbazu, Executive Governor of Abia State. Thank you very much for being with us. And Governor, I do hope that as Aba is producing the PPEs and masks, that your brother governors will continue to place orders so that you can supply them, rather than us depending on importation, since our forest reserve is also going down. Okay, all right. From Ibadan, we're joined by Dr. Bashir Bello, Commissioner for Health in Oyo State. Dr. Bello, maybe next time you will tell us the soup that your governor used in working the amala, whether it was begiri or it was ewedu soup. You know, I know that the goose is not very popular in Oyo, but that's fine. Fair enough. Thank you very much, Dr. Bello. From Kwara, Professor Wale Suleiman joined us via Skype. His special advisor to Kwara State Governor on Health. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
All right, with us in the studios, our regular guest, former Director General, Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Professor Abdusalam Nasidi, his Provost of College of Medicine at University of Africa in Bayelsa. Prof, thank you very much.
Thank you very
for
much.
being with us always and for your insights.
My pleasure.
Okay, so that does it for us today on Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you for being around. The program returns tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, do stay safe and follow all the protocols. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Jumwe Yusuf. Do stay safe.